So are you guys ready to get this panel started? The Eras of Batman? All right, please welcome back to the stage your moderator for this panel. She's been doing a lovely job so far. Please give it up for Londyn Jackson! I mean, she knows all about Batman.
I'm hyped.
Bring it.
Yes. Hey, everybody. Again. So, I run History of the Batman. So, this panel is so exciting for me because we are going to be celebrating Batman in animation today. And I have some of the most iconic voice actors for the characters. So, we have with us Batman, Kevin Conroy, who has voiced Batman since the beginning. We also have Will Friedle, who's also Batman, and Terry McGinnis for Batman Beyond. And I am so excited to say we have John Glover, who voiced the Riddler in Batman. So I would like everyone to come out. We have Kevin Conroy, we have Will Friedle, and we have John Glover. Bring their tummy. Is Batman back there? Ah, there he is.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
How do you top that? I can't. I feel like I've been here recently. I don't know what's going on. Hey! Right!
So we are here celebrating Batman in animation. Now, while Batman has been on the small screen animation since the late 60s to Super Friends in the 70s and 80s, there is nothing quite like 1992 when Batman the Animated Series began and kicked off the classic DC animated universe. And I just wanted to ask, with Batman the Animated Series and you and Kevin, you voicing Bruce Wayne's Batman, and John, you voicing the Riddler, and Will, you voicing Terry McGinnis for Batman Beyond and follow-up, how did you come to get these roles, and how did you want to bring your own spin to bring to life these classic characters when you originally first stumbled?
Wow. Well, I kind of stumbled into it because it was literally the first audition I ever went on for an animated character was Batman. I didn't do animation. I was a New York stage actor. I happened to be in LA doing a TV show, and my voiceover agent sent me over to audition for Batman. And I was so naive about it, I didn't even know it had never been an animated show. I knew the Adam West show from when I was a kid, and I assumed there had been some Batman. But I didn't know. I only knew the Adam West show. And Bruce Timm was horrified at that. He said, "What kind of childhood did you have? Didn't you ever read comic books?" So he had to bring me up to speed on the Dark Knight tragedy, watching his parents murdered in front of him as a child, how he becomes this dual identity to deal with his frustrations and his tragedy in himself. So I just improvised at the audition, and I came up with this very dark sound. It's just I kind of created it in the audition, and they hired me, and I had no idea, and I don't think anyone else had any idea that it would last so many years and become so iconic. And Batman the Animated Series became Batman and Robin, and Batman Beyond, and the Justice League. It just kept growing and growing and growing. You don't know when you start a job what it's going to turn into. You really don't. You can see it in hindsight when you look back, but when you're living it in the moment, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next year, or the next month, you know. So it was as much of a surprise for all of us as it was for you. So, thank you.
story and our stories, we've talked about this a bunch of times, they're remarkably similar. Because it was Batman Beyond was the first animated series I'd ever auditioned for either. And we both auditioned for Andrea Romano, who was the queen of the world. I think I had a lot less to live up to because I can say to this day, I'm the best Terry McGinnis there's ever been. Because
You're the only Terry.
Exactly. I didn't have to
Terry,
Bruce Wayne.
get off my lawn.
Exactly. Bitter old Bruce.
Bitter old Bruce.
We'd always work on the bitter old Bruce. But yeah, so I didn't have to step in any shoes. It wasn't like I had to become Bruce Wayne. So it was a lot easier for me, I think, in that respect. It was very difficult sitting next to Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill for a lot of the show. It's kind of just keeping my mouth shut, thinking I was going to be fired any second, going, you don't belong here, keep your mouth shut, keep your mouth shut. So yeah, it was an incredible experience all the way around. And as Kevin said, you never know what you got when you're there. You're just kind of in the room and you're feeling the energy. And when you're with Andrea Romano and her casting, the room is always filled with such remarkable actors that you never know what you're walking into. So it's just, you take it one show at a time, one session at a time. You're having so much fun. And the response was great. We were Beyond just keeps going. So we were really happy with what we had.
I had worked with Andrea Romano on Pinky in the Brain. Yes, there was some episode about shiny pants or something. I wanted shiny pants. So I saw shiny pants and bought a bunch of them. I don't know. I don't remember. But I got a call to go work with Andrea again to be the Riddler. Because apparently the Joker had lost his voice. I think he was quitting smoking. And so the Riddler moved up to the Joker, and they needed a new Riddler, so they got me. And I lived right around the corner from where the recording studio was, so I'm only in 3 episodes, and I walked around the corner 3 times on a day, and had the best time with a bunch of actors doing like radio plays, because we were all in the room, and it was like acting with other people, as opposed to now when you do it by yourself and have to do like 20 takes of one line until anyway. So I was only in 3 episodes, and it was on Saturdays, right? I think in the afternoons. And I was all grown up then. I didn't watch Saturday morning cartoons. So it wasn't until these Comic-Cons that I started doing them that I realized how important this cartoon show was to so many people who were brought up on it, learned how to kind of live lives and make choices that are healthy. And I remember one kid at a Comic-Con, I was trying to explain this to him, and he just looked downhearted that I didn't watch it, that I didn't understand it, but he didn't get the point that I was beginning to understand why it was so good. And recently I watched the 3rd and last Riddler episode, and I delighted myself. I couldn't believe how much fun I was having. So it was a real awakening. Yeah, so that's the show for me. Ignorance is bliss, till you're wise to learn something.
Well, as Kevin said, initially you didn't know it would grow to be such a large part of Batman lore and the animation itself. But why do you think even almost 30 years later, it is still one of the most beloved interpretations, the DC animated universe as a whole, of the Batman character and his mythology?
I think the biggest reason that it resonates with audiences so much is because of all the superheroes, Batman is the only one who isn't a superhero. There's nothing supernatural about him. He can't fly. He can't see through walls. He's a man. He's a human being, and he's a very flawed man. He's been damaged by life. And we all relate to that, because we're all flawed. And we all get beat up by life. And so it makes him that much more human and accessible for us. And his tragedy becomes our drama, and we go through it with him. And I think we admire the fact that no matter what life throws at him, no matter what tragedy or crisis or failure, he never lets it defeat him. He never lets it make him angry or beat him. He never kills. And the reason he doesn't kill is because he is about hope. He is about making positive choices. He's about taking the pain of life and turning it into something positive. And that's just so ennobling for all of us. That's why I think he resonates with people so much.
Now, if I may speak too, because of the way that he's describing that, you can see that he dug deep, really deep. And the part that is making it live on and on and on are the group of people that made it, that created it.
Yeah.
Because it's very seldom, and when it happens big time, it's just when a group of people come together and make something click, and make it real, and make it moving, and who all know how to dig deep. So it was that group gathered together.
Yeah.
There's something about the magic that they created that influenced people's lives. I mean, how to raise kids. I was making jokes before about the children and everything, but in Batman you can talk about anything, because it's all about living nobly, and just what Kevin was saying. We've all got our problems, and it's how we face them that can prove our beings as humans.
It was never thought of as a cartoon. It was an animated series. And Batman, the animated series, especially '92, I remember watching, people always say, who's your Batman? So that's the question. Is it, this is my Batman and always will be. Always will be. Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Glenn Murakami, Alan Burnett, all these men and women involved, they took this very, very seriously.
Yeah.
Nobody was making a cartoon. They were making a 1930s radio play that happened to be animated. Andre Romano had a great saying she would always say in the room, don't do it pukey. Meaning, like, a newscaster would come on, and if you're doing a cartoon, the newscaster would say, and tomorrow we're getting on Jerry and go, no, that's not how we do it. Do it like like a newscaster would do it. So all the acting was very grounded in reality. It just happened to be animated.
She's a genius,
She's
Andrea.
brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and so that's one of the reasons I think it's resonated, is because it's still just a well-written, well-produced, well-acted, well-directed show.
Yeah.
It just happens to be animated, and I think that's what changed it. Where I never once heard anybody say the Batman cartoon, ever. It was always the animated series.
Only me, right?
You're allowed. You're allowed.
You're Tommy Johnson. That's my mother.
But they were never talking down to the audience. And it was never done as a kid's show. It had to be kid-friendly, but the biggest audience was really college age.
Yeah.
There was never a sense of doing a kid's show. It was, as you were saying, it was an animated series.
Yeah, it was great. And then when we did Batman, we started Batman Beyond, I think the Bruce Timm tells a great story where he said, they came in and said, we want to do a younger Batman, high school Batman, kid-friendly Batman.
Right.
And Bruce went, okay. And did Batman Beyond, which is arguably darker than the animated series. And when we went to the opening, they did at Warner Brothers. They have this great screening room at Warner Brothers, this big kind of theater, and they screened the first two episodes, Rebirth, parts 1 and 2.
Right.
And we're watching kind of through the dark as I'm seeing figures getting up and walking out. And I said to Bruce, I said, who's that? He said, those are the network executives. This is not what they asked for. And he's like, they wanted younger Batman. Terry's younger. And that was it. So he said, I wasn't gonna dumb it down. I wasn't gonna talk to kids. I talk down to kids. If they want Batman, Batman's dark. Okay, the new Batman's 17. It's still dark. And that's what they liked.
I hear tell that there's something coming up that they're working on that's going to continue something? Or
Well, this is something that people are just going to find out about, is that Alan Burnett has written a new script for Batman. And it's based on the 92 Batman the Animated Series character.
But it's a secret, so don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anybody.
Do you think there'll be any more Riddlers? More
But
than 3?
it'll be on HBO Max or on Spotify. But it's definitely in the works.
Oh, wow.
But don't tell anybody.
Yeah, big secret.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about it's almost a radio drama podcast, so can you give us any information about where Batman is or what the storyline is at all? Can you give us a little bit of detail?
I don't know.
I don't think I'm allowed to say anything
I would.
except to say that it's coming and it's really good.
There you
It's a great script.
So I know
And
that
it's the original characters and most of the original cast.
yes, most of the original cast is coming back to do the podcast, and Alan
That's
Burnett's
very
writing the
exciting.
script. And I also
The Riddler
heard
didn't
that
get killed, did he? I get killed a lot, you know. Well, it's serious. I can't have that many twins.
well, I heard that Alan Burnett is writing the script, and also I think Danny Elfman is going
Oh,
to
yes,
have some
Danny
involvement with the score as well. It's really bringing back all of the BTAS that we enjoyed in '92, really celebrating the 30th anniversary. But I did hear that Riddler is going to be.
Oh,
in
I like
it.
the way you think.
I think
That would be
so.
Yes, he is in it.
I think he's on the spectrum.
Yes, he is. From what I've heard, that he is playing more of a detective role of sorts, but he is also on the autism spectrum, which kind of deals with kind of the how he's specific with details, and I think that's really interesting because the Riddler, even in comics before, has worked alongside Batman in Detective Comics books to play that kind of detective role. But I think that's a great way to look at not only the spectrum, and because there aren't a lot of DC characters who are on the spectrum. There's Black Manta, and that was introduced in the early 2000s, but seeing Riddler being this within the mythos, I think will be really great to
He's a
explore.
perfect character for being on the spectrum.
Yes,
I think the question.
Little
I think the
bats.
question might be on the spectrum too. I would say.
Yes,
Question seems like he would.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the fact that that the podcast will introduce that to an already beloved character in the Riddler within the DCAU, I think it's fantastic. So the original voice cast and Danny Elfman and Alan Burnett and the original writers and producers, it's going to be amazing. It's a perfect way to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series, I think. And I think just to round this out, do you have a particular favorite episode or moment from the original animated series, Batman Beyond, that you would tell anybody who's not watched it, like, oh, these are the episodes, this is the moment that you should watch to really understand.
Well, you have to see the episode Perchance to Dream.
Yes.
It's a great
My
episode.
favorite.
And it takes you back into Batman's childhood, how he evolved. And my favorite project was Mask of the Phantasm. That's a great movie with wonderful performances by Dana Delaney and Stacy Keach. I mean, it's an amazing cast.
I got a lot of watching to do. Man, I had no idea
What?
about how deep it went. It goes.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I mean, I keep hearing things. I feel so like an idiot. On the spectrum.
That's one of the joys of. So I'm a self-proclaimed and very proud nerd. Thank you. Thank you, one person who agrees with me. And the joy of any nerddom is you scratch the surface and then you can go down the rabbit hole and you find a whole world around whatever you
Yeah.
want. So that is one of the joys of nerddom, says the Dungeons and Dragons player. It's like you want to fall into Batman, you can fall for months and years, or any DC or any Marvel or anything you love. You scratch the surface, and next thing you know, you're painting minis for years. So it's great. Yeah.
Well, I am so happy that I was able to talk to you about just the eras of Batman animation, and even the Batman the Caped Crusader new series that's coming out, and it continues on with the legacy of Batman in this form. And I just cannot wait to hear what's in store with the Batman the Animated Series podcast that is coming out.
Yes.
To celebrate 30th anniversary. Can you believe that it's been 30 years and yet it is still just as popular and still as refreshing to old and newer people discovering it. I think that's what is so amazing.
Well, they had a wonderful cast, they had great writing, they had a full symphony score. It was all hand-painted cells. It was before computer-generated imagery. So everything about the show was expensive. And it shows, and it's why it's lasted so long. When you see them now, they still look so new. You know?
It was also, was it the first show that was printed on black
Yes.
paper instead of white paper,
Yes.
which is what made it so dark? Yeah, it was
Yeah.
brilliant.
Everything about it was rich and unique.
Changed the whole ballgame.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I'm glad that we're going to be able to continue celebrating Batman animation, and you can watch all of the series and listen to the podcast and the new podcast coming up. And we are all just so thankful that you guys have helped bring one of our favorite characters to life. I personally
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everyone that came to this wonderful panel. And I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy your day at LA Comic Con. And thank you, Kevin Conroy, Will Friedle,